Hello and good day. Another day of Ascension Pacific team intro videos, and I have one big question. Where in the world are the JFT VODs? Am I crazy? I can't find them. I thought it was because of Twitch in Korea because we can't access VODs on Twitch specifically. So I tried to route in through a VPN and I found stage 1 VODs, but I couldn't find the stage 2 VODs, and they're not on YouTube or at least any other platform that I could look into. So this is just an announcement out there. If you have found or you've seen these lost VODs of JFT in stage 2 of Challengers Oceania out there in the wild somewhere, please leave a comment down below. And while you're at it, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well for more videos in the future. But no worries, even without all the VODs, we shall still cover this team to the best ability that I can. Just do keep in mind that I've only seen a little bit of their stage 1 performance, and obviously the team's had some changes since then as well. And I did watch their comms video for their playoffs run in stage 2. So that's about all the actual gameplay that I have of this squad. But let's talk about Challengers Oceania as a whole, because this is a bit of an interesting story as well. It all starts with Bonkers. They obviously made it to Ascension last year, Ascension Pacific happening in Bangkok in 2023, and they actually surprised a lot of people outside of Oceania. They came in and did damage. They made it all the way to the top 6 of playoffs, or into the playoffs. And I think that brought a lot of attention to Bonkers and Oceania from the rest of the world. They continue on into 2024, and people are thinking, okay, they looked pretty good against these other teams. Bonkers has to have this. Not only that, they actually found themselves a sponsor in GGHao. So a lot of people were thinking, okay, like this is Bonkers' year to try to make a run back into Ascension. It didn't start off dominant as teams like Focus GG and Arena put up some challenges, but eventually GGHao Bonkers does take the title in stage 1, and all was going as written. But now, that was obviously not the case going into stage 2. Focus GG and Arena strike back again in stage 2. But then as the dust settles around all this chaos, it's actually JFT who comes in and stands above everybody else. So let's take a look at this roster. Here are your starting 5 for JFT. Mirza, Andy, Icona, Kiss, and Ramen. Now, they did have a couple roster changes, resulting in a couple subs here and there, but these are the 5 that they settled with for stage 2, and so far, it seems like these are going to be, in fact, the 5 that we will be seeing at Ascension as well. Now, do take these roles with a little bit of grain of salt, because this team definitely kind of goes for comfort roles and what they think is just strong right now and what enables them to frag out. Also, I do want to note, as you can see in the disclaimer at the bottom of your screens, these are actually now going to be the most played agents in the last 3 months. Mostly because, first of all, Stage 2 ended really early for Oceania as well. But then afterwards, they've also had another online tournament through LPL. So I didn't want to have to go through everything and count all the matches on my own. Yes, maybe I'm a little lazy on that front. But it does seem like, okay, the roles are, this is what we saw towards the end of Stage 2. They continue to tinker a little bit in the LPL Pathfinder tournament. But this should be the roles that we can expect from this team. So going off, Mirza is your duelist, right? Playing a lot of that Jet, playing a lot of the Neon, playing the Rays. So your traditional dive duelist, your entry, so to speak, for this squad. Then you have Andy, whose role was to play ISO. Let's just be blatantly honest. That was literally his job in Stage 2. I mean, this team, we'll take a look at it later, but this team was playing ISO everywhere. Like, it was ISO. Could you click on ISO? Then you were picking him in that match. So a lot of ISO. I think Jet and Deadlock are only there because I think he maybe played 2 games of Jet and like 1 game of Deadlock in Stage 2. So yes, he did branch out, It's not like Margaret on SPG where he only played Cypher for 607 rounds, but yes, it's pretty much all ISO. Then you have Icona, who is going to be the initiator. A bit of stability now in, back in the roles here. Traditional initiator. You've got the Sovas, you've got the Skies, you've got the Fades, all the info that you can want. Then you have Kiss going over to the controller. But I do believe in Stage 1, Kiss was actually playing most of the duelist, most of the Jet play. So bit of a role swap there. Heavily focused on the Omen, but swapping over to the Viper and Brimstone as needed, depending on the map. And then Ramen, the Sentinel. does have a little bit of flexibility. Actually, all of these players, if you look at their overall performance throughout this year, there's a lot of flexibility in their agent pool, but Ramen did seem to always kind of go into that Sentinel role, even back in stage 1. So he's going to be your go-to Sentinel. Did focus a lot on that Cypher, but obviously showcased that he's willing to play the Killjoy, even the Deadlock as needed. So again, a little bit different from some Prisa Gaming, where there is some variability in this squad in terms of how they work around each different map. Obviously, I mean, just by the fact that they're picking ISO like everywhere that they possibly can, it goes to show how confident this team is. I mean, they're focused a lot on their fragging power, that they're not going to back out from fights, that they're willing to win out, and they are willing to just continue to put down the pressure on you. So just looking at the agent pool, like, this is a very aggressive agent pool. But the real question becomes, again, we'll take a look at this later, because we don't have much gameplay from this team, we're going to take a look at their comps and how they've kind of changed into the online tournament for LPL Pathfinder. And they do seem like they're trying to experiment before Ascension to see how they can shore up some of their compositional weaknesses. So I'm not really sure what to expect. I mean, I don't know if you even read too much into this right now in terms of, okay, these are the roles that they're going to play with, because clearly they are willing to just say, hey, I'm comfortable on this agent, let's swap it up, and then we'll play different roles and we'll still frag out. Anyways, as I was saying, going into the overall storyline and journey of this year so far for JFT and Challengers Oceania, a lot of it focused around Bonkers in Stage 1, while Focus and Arena looked like worthy challengers. This continued in Stage 2, where Focus and Arena were in fact the two teams that kind of worked in tandem in the bracket and the upper and lower bracket to knock out GGHao Bonkers out of the tournament, out of the running for Ascension. Suddenly, the favorites coming in from 2023, continuing on to try to make another chance at Ascension, just weren't there anymore. So where was JFT during all of this? JFT was good, but their records didn't exactly give anything to write home about, right? They've lost games to Focus and Arena and looked to be a team that was close but not quite there yet. A couple of their members had played a little bit in China, and some of them have been playing since 2022 in tournaments back in Oceania. So yes, they have some experience, but even then, it's not like any one individual brings so much pedigree that they are able to draw the spotlight onto this team and this roster. Now, last year, Bonkers surprised a lot of people who weren't quite aware of the scene in Oceania by making it into the top 6 of Ascension in Bangkok, right? They made it into that playoffs bracket of the top 6. But despite the attention that they brought, the fact that it's very tough for teams and players in Oceania to get any practice outside of the region continues to have a lot of people doubting the scene just a little bit. On top of that, JFT, now coming in as a team that's a bit of an unknown, sets them up actually perfectly to do damage this time once again at Ascension. From what I can gather, this team plays no fear Valorant, and they're willing to take any fight. And if they start winning those fights, one by one, nobody knows how far that momentum will take them. Now, taking a look at their map pool. Okay, a bit shakier than some of the other map pools we've seen, and you know, that goes to be expected because, again, they weren't as dominant, right? They weren't always a favorite team to win the entire tournament. In fact, I would say that they were a bit of a surprise, like not a complete underdog story, but not one that was always in the running. So, okay, you have some very clear strong points like Ascent and Icebox. In fact, I would say it's actually kind of insane that they have over 60% win rates on both sides of both maps, right? Attack and defense of Ascent and Icebox. That's actually really impressive no matter who you're playing against, because generally, like, you're holding, you know, let's say you're consistently holding like 56% on both sides. Like, that's really solid. That's how you're going to win that map almost every time. But I mean, over 60%, like, you're dominating these maps. That's great. But then you look at Bind. Only one win out of 4 games that they've played, and they can't break that 50% on either attack or defense. So a lot of instability that we're seeing on that map. Obviously, not much exploration in Sunset. Only that one game played, didn't get the win, and then Abyss wasn't in the pool when they were wrapping up Challenger Stage 2. So that's another thing that they'll have to explore. So what we can gather from this is that, yes, you have your strong suits, but at the same time, you have Bind that's been in the pool, you have Sunset, which has been in the pool, and now you have Abyss coming in. 3 maps that you're going to have to sort out. That's a lot that you need to work on to figure out comps that you're comfortable enough to pull out, because otherwise these drafts are going to start to get pretty one-sided going into a tournament against other teams that might have just had more practice on a lot of these maps, right? Whether it's just because of veterancy or how many games they played during the season, or maybe again some regions they had Abyss in the pool during their stage 2 run. There's a slew of reasons why you would be at a disadvantage, but it doesn't matter how strong your Ascent and Icebox is if they can start getting banned out and you don't really have the other maps prepared. So the big question for me is, can this team, you've had a lot of time, so can you sort out compositions that enable your strong suits, that make you comfortable to frag out on some of these other maps like you have been on Ascent and Icebox? So this is a fun little experiment we're going to do with JFT where, you know, obviously we don't have much gameplay, but they did play another online tournament in LPL Pathfinder Season 2 after, or I mean, kind of coincided with the ending of their challenges run actually, but they've had a lot more matches since then as well. So let's take a look, because obviously we're seeing very big changes. Basically, there's a lot of Jet on and ISO on the left side, and then there's like a lot of Neon on the other side. You will notice, like, for instance, as a disclaimer, or just as a footnote, these are basically like their 2 most recent changed compositions, if there were any comp changes. I'm not going to put the frequency down in here. It's not like crazy high for any of these comps, right? They're kind of frequently changed, or maybe it's like 2 games here, 1 game there. So don't read into it too much, but it does just go to show that they were experimenting quite a bit. So the left column is going to be what they were playing in Stage 2 of Challengers Oceania, and the right column is what we saw them play in LPL Pathfinder Season 2 after Challengers. There were also a couple of games where they did have to play with a sub, so in LPL Pathfinder, but also in Challenger Stage 2. So again, just take this with a grain of salt. But it is interesting to see that obviously a lot of work trying to be done on bind, right? They're saying, okay, we gotta shy away from this. We gotta figure something else out that suits our color, and they're trying to pick out the Yoru Gecko, right? Maybe you're trying to enable the Yoru a bit more with the Breach. Maybe you're trying the Neon. They've really been leaning into the Neon, and that tells me also that this team is willing to just say, hey, flavor of the month, let's go for it, right? They're not going to be bound by the textbook of Valorant that says, whoa, a team needs like X amount of flashes and these types of smokes, and these are the timings, and your cooldowns have to coincide. No, this team clearly says, oh, ISO is buffed, like ISO strong? Heck yeah, we pick him on Ascent, Haven, Icebox, Lotus, and Sunset. We pick him everywhere because guess what? If he's good at dueling, well, you have to duel everywhere on every map in Valorant. And then now you're like, okay, well, Neon, since the buffs, a lot of teams have been loving playing her on different maps. All right, put her on every single map. Let's see how that goes. And again, I mean, the opponents weren't exactly the top of the pedigree here in LPL Pathfinder, so they do have a 100% win rate in that entire tournament. So who knows exactly what they were able to get out of this. I mean, we're looking at that second composition on Haven. It's like 4 duelists with Clove. So obviously the team's having a little bit of fun while they're at it. But I do think that they're trying to get comfortable, right, with things like the Neon, with things like the Yoru, and then seeing, okay, how else do we supplement these new agents and these new compositions? So the biggest change to me is bind. Like, they've completely shifted away from the more traditional compositions, whether it's the Cypher Lock or whether it's like the Raise Fade combination with the double controllers. Now they're going over to the Yoru and seeing how they can revolve around that. We're seeing some more close sprinkled in throughout, since Challengers Stage 2, saying, okay, how do we make sure we enable this controller? Does that allow us to be even more aggressive? Maybe does it take away too much utility? That's something that they're going to have to figure out. And then a lot of Neon over that Jet and Raze, quite frankly. And then the ISO getting pulled back just a little bit. So I think working around a little bit more utility, a little bit more like map tempo and control rather than like dueling tempo and control. But again, without having seen the gameplay, we don't want to read into it too much. But I think this is going to provide a bit of a headache for their opponents going into Ascension 2024, because you just have no idea what to expect from this team. I mean, they could be picking out any of these compositions, and then they could be picking out a completely new composition. And they're obviously a team that's not afraid to pick out things like the ISO and the Reyna that basically need to win duels because they're confident they can. So who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. After all that said and done, I honestly don't know where to place this team. I mean, That's just the honest answer, especially because I haven't seen much recent gameplay from this squad. They do seem quite talented individually, and they do play with no fear, which I think won't be actually that easily punished at Ascension compared to, let's say, if they were playing against teams in VCT Pacific or at a Masters or something like that, right? Because all these Ascension teams don't have as much experience, they're not as organized, and also there's a lot of pressure at Ascension. I mean, this is that one chance the whole year that you have to try to go higher. So I think teams aren't going to be as flexible in adapting to perhaps the pressure and the aggression that JFT might bring out against them. I mean, basically, think back to old Paper Rex's impact whenever they were playing against other teams or within their own region against weaker teams, right? The teams were just getting flustered. And given that it's a double elimination bracket rather than a round robin, I think JFT can use that to their advantage to start strong and just keep up that momentum and try to go as far as they can before people catch on to what's going on at this tournament. They are so unknown that it feels kind of ridiculous to even call them a dark horse team, but I will say that the bracket is looking good for them. That initial matchup, probably one of the easier matchups in terms of just veterancy and experience compared to some of the other teams that we have coming in, right? It's not at least one of the favorites to win the tournament. So if JFT can start strong against Rapid Lofi, gain that confidence that they've always had, kind of bolster it, get some affirmation, who knows what kind of monster they'll turn into by the end of the run. Listen, I know we have fans in Oceania that are rooting for this team, so let me know down in the comments below, what else have we missed? What else should we know about this team? Because the more I look into it, the more I'm interested. I want to know more about this team. I would love to see what damage they can do at this tournament, so definitely leave a comment down below on what you expect to see from JFT, and of course, don't forget to like and subscribe onto this video and this channel if you'd like to learn more about Ascension Pacific coming up soon on September 20th. That's it for now, and we'll see you next time on the next video with Rapid Lofi.